Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to our city council meeting today and also congratulate all the kids that are able to get back to school today and this week and our teachers and staff that are so excited to see those kids again. Thank you for being here today. We do have some people in the audience who would like to ask, if you are in the audience, to still, if you can, please wear a mask. Up on the dais, we do not have our masks on for two reasons. One, we're being broadcast actively, and two, we have a council member that is hearing impaired and needs to be able to read our lips. But when you do come to speak and address city council, then at that time, please take your mask off so that we can read your lips and have you broadcast appropriately and well. We'll go ahead and call to order our meeting, please.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez. Absent. Councilmember Jaquez.
Here.
Councilmember Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick. Absent. Mayor Smith.
Here. And I do believe Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick should be joining us by Zoom or telephone at some point in this meeting. He is on his way home traveling. Let's go ahead and have our Pledge of Allegiance, if you wouldn't mind rising, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cindy, have we had any citizens request to speak to council that's not on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. What about council member announcements?
Well, because John's not here, I'll do his thing. We have a general government meeting on Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Councilmember Reed?
I just wanted to congratulate all of the Canyon City School Districts for getting a plan together and getting kids back to school and just doing all the hard work that they've been doing to be able to make that happen. I just want to commend the effort that the superintendent and the school board and the assistant superintendent have done to be able to make it possible for our kiddos to have a lot of options. I think that's one thing that I've heard over and over is that no matter where you're at right now or how you're feeling about things, Canyon City Schools have really done an excellent job in providing an option for you. And so I just wanted to congratulate them and tell them how much it's appreciated. So thank you to the school district.
Absolutely, here. Are there any other announcements? All right, then we'll go ahead and move on to our recognitions and proclamations. We have Jessica Cobbler here to speak about the proclamation about National Suicide Prevention Month for 2020. And I'd like to invite you to address City Council, please.
Thank you for having me today. So I'd like to share a little bit of why I'm involved with suicide awareness and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, share a little of my story and the upcoming Out of the Darkness experience here in Fremont County. A couple of things I'd like to start off with as I was preparing to speak tonight. This never gets any easier. I still get anxious. I want to cancel, but I know how important it is to show up, even with tears in my eyes. This is part of my healing process too. Cindy handed a board that's got pictures of Dalton on it if you guys want to pass it around. I'm not an expert, I'm just a mom who lost her son to suicide. My son Dalton died by suicide on June 18th of 2014. He was 18 years old. He was such a great kid, a good person, a kind person. He was an amazing big brother to our youngest son, Brandon. Dalton was shy, but he always made friends easily, and he was a loyal friend and had a variety of friends that he brought together. Dalton was involved in 4-H and archery and showed market pigs. He played sports in high school, baseball and track. He loved to hunt, fish, and go camping. He was a Colorado Rockies fan, and he loved his Indianapolis Colts. Dalton had a great sense of humor, and he loved to learn. He was the 2014 Florence High School valedictorian, and he was planning to attend the Colorado School of Mines that fall of 2014. He was going to pursue a degree in chemical engineering. We used to say that he had the world at his fingertips. There were no warning signs with Dalton. We had no idea. He was the friend that kids went to for help, encouragement, and a shoulder to cry on. He listened, cheered them up, and helped them if he could, but he never reached out for help himself. He suffered in silence. I'd like to share some of what Dalton wrote in his valedictorian speech. I want us, the class of 2014, to be remembered for years to come. Listen to your voice, your own soul. Too many people listen to the noise of the world instead of being themselves. Being different is never a bad thing. I was labeled a socially awkward nerd throughout most of high school, although this may be truthful to an extent. Look at me now. I'm on top and I'm different in many ways from those in front of me. Take a chance, be yourself, and remember we all go through a dark, scary tunnel before we reach the sunlight at the other end. He also talked about the saying, the grass is always greener on the other side, and quoted Robert Fulghum, the grass is not, in fact, always greener on the other side of the fence. Fences have nothing to do with it. The grass is greenest where it is watered. When crossing over fences, carry water with you and tend the grass wherever you may be. Suicide wasn't part of our vocabulary 6 years and 2 months ago. Since then, my mission has been to, number one, make sure Dalton is never forgotten. Make sure that that one day does not define his life. He lived. To be his voice. To educate and talk about mental health and suicide and work towards ending the stigma of those words. To let you know that suicide does not discriminate. If this can happen to my family, it can happen to yours. To try and prevent another family from going through what my family goes through. None of what I do would be possible without the support of my family, friends, and community. So I thank you for always letting me speak, doing the proclamation, and always being supportive with my walk that I've had in the past. This year's walk, of course, is a little different. It's not an in-person event due to the COVID-19. So I'm just going to read you a little snippet of what's on our walk page. While the Fremont County Out of the Darkness Walk is going to look different this year, our mission to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide has not changed. We are a strong and resilient community, united in our effort to fight suicide, raise awareness, educate our communities, support those who have lost loved ones, and support those with lived experience. We use our voices and share our stories to provide hope. We invite you to join us this fall for an Out of the Darkness experience. We're working hard to plan meaningful opportunities to connect and inspire you, and we will share more details about our exciting plan in the weeks to come. So the kickoff of this is still Saturday, September 12th at 10 o'clock. If you go to our walk page, afsp.org/Fremont, you can upload photos that they'll put together a slideshow. So on that day, you're gonna see and hear from people within our community, from people from Colorado that are fighting suicide, sharing our stories. I still have the memorial board. If anyone would like to send me a picture to be posted on our memorial board, I can take photos and upload it. We still ask that you register online. There is no fee to do this. It is a fundraiser. You can donate if you're able to. If you're not, that's fine too. We just want your voices heard and to kind of help fight the fight for suicide. That's all I have. I just, again, appreciate you letting me come and speak and share my story. And just remind you to take care of yourself, take care of each other, and water and tend the grass wherever you are.
you. Thank you for your important message, Jessica.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Brandon Smith will be reading the proclamation for us tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Office of Mayor Proclamation, National Suicide Prevention Month, September 2020. Whereas Canyon City is the home to more than 16,000 people, a place of destination for thousands of visitors annually, and a site of about a dozen state correctional facilities. And whereas the Fremont County Coroner reported 30 suicides were investigated in 2019, 4 of which were offenders in the state and federal prisons. And whereas Fremont County's average number of deaths by suicide typically is 12 to 16 per year, whereas suicide costs Colorado a total of more than $1 billion of combined lifetime medical and work loss in 2017, or on average of 1.2 million per suicide death, according to the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. And whereas in 2019, suicide was Colorado's 10th leading cause of death, and whereas in 2019, suicide was the 2nd leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34 and the 4th leading cause of death for ages 35 to 54 in the U.S. And whereas, on average, there are 132 suicides per day in the U.S. And whereas, on average, 1 person dies by suicide every 7 hours in the state. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed by Canyon City Mayor Ashley Smith that September 2020 is hereby designated as National Suicide Prevention Month in Canyon City. Mayor Smith and the Canyon City City Council do urge all people of Canyon City to become educated on suicide prevention awareness and support those affected by suicide during this month and throughout the year. Dated this 17th day of August, 2020.
Thank you, Brandon and Jessica. I would now like to invite our administrator, Ryan Stevens, to review our agenda and consent agenda items, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Item 8A is to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting on August 3rd, the special city council meetings on July 22nd and August 4th, the vision committee meeting on July 22nd, and the general government meeting on August 5th. 8B authorizes the city administrator to sign an intergovernmental agreement regarding Rudd Park with the Fremont RE1 school district. 8C awards bid 3320 sodium chlorite to Evoqua Water Technologies in the amount of $13,780. 8D is the monthly budget summary for June. 8E is to receive and file a list of bills as well as the P card disbursements.
Are there any additions or corrections? Councilmember Meisner.
Ryan, in regards to the item D, what's your feeling about, I realize the parks revenue is not representative of the situation because of the gorge, but that's pretty flaky in itself. My only concerns as I look through there is parks and the water department. What thoughts or concerns do you have?
Yeah, the Parks Department's going to be tied to the gorge revenue, and we've made many budget cuts and are tracking the gorge revenue very closely. We're also tracking sales tax revenue very closely. One thing that we did not budget for this year as far as revenue goes is actually the Black Hills franchise revenue, not knowing when that election was going to happen. So we do have some additional money in there to help offset some of those expenses or some of those lost revenues. So we are watching it very closely. In regards to water, we're the water department. We're tracking that as well. Again, that kind of goes with usage, very similar to what we had last year, where some of our revenue and our cost of goods to deliver the water service are very closely tied together. So even though revenue might not be as high, some of that usage isn't as high as well. So we have some expenses that offset some of those lower revenues. This is the June statement. So that's actually billing for May. So that's all the water activity through May. So the heavier months you're going to see in the upcoming budget statements.
Any other comments or questions from council?
Hold on. I hate to ask this, but we got Quality Code Publishing.
Yep. Just what is it?
Well, it says it's municipal code update.
Yeah, so we have an online system that we use for our municipal code. So every time there's a new ordinance, it gets uploaded to the Q code system, and they're the service provider for that particular service.
So what's that, an annual fee or something?
That is a quarterly fee or semi-annual.
Just to upload?
Though it's not that high every time. It just depends how much we are putting in at the time and how often they do it. So sometimes she'll go 6-7 months before we upload, depending on how much we have to upload. And then, so the next one, because it was later in the year this time, the next one will be much less. But it's to upload and to print. They print all of our books for us. They send us all that information in the book format, all set how it has to be.
Well, she brought up an interesting point that there's been times in the past when you get online and look at the documentation online, it's not right. Because we're waiting for the 6-month period to upload that. That doesn't seem right.
They upload the ordinances once I give them to them after they've been published right away. There's usually just a little star at the top that says there's been a change, and you have to click on that until the actual printing part goes through. But it should go within a couple weeks of being published.
Yeah, I think it's more of a billing issue than not necessarily having an updated online system.
When we were working on one of the weed ordinances or trash ordinances, that was not the case. In that those ordinances that were online were not updated. I chatted with Catherine about it in terms of, why are you looking at something online that's not representative of what our current documents are? And the reasoning given at the time was because of that lag between council approving it and the organization uploading that onto the website. So I don't know.
Yeah, we can look into it and see, make sure that the timeliness is happening, and do some spot checks after ordinances are approved. See how long it's taken.
That would be nice. Is there any other comments or discussion? Councilmember Jaquez.
Yeah, on the cash disbursements, it's been a while since I've seen the ones I'm going to mention. That what do we get now with the COVID-19 taking place? What kind of services do we get now for the money that we give to the Chamber of Commerce with regards to when they come to us every year for money? And what kind of services do we get from FEDC for the money that we're giving them? I haven't seen anything in the newspapers and stuff like that where there's been a response by either one of the agencies with regards to things going on with that. So I'm just curious, what are we getting for the money that we're supplying them?
Yeah, with FEDC, there's a lot of projects that they're working on, and they have their monthly board updates. A lot of what they're working on they can't publish yet because they're have non-disclosure agreements with some of those projects that are going on. But there is a lot of activity going on still with FEDC and some of that development that's going on there. With the Chamber of Commerce, with COVID, I do think that we're going to have to look and see how the contract or the request for next year might need to change based off of what their request has been in the past compared to what they're able to offer with the tourist cabin. Obviously, there's some changing dynamics there with everything that's going on with the pandemic.
And I understand some of the things that you mentioned with regards to FEDC, but would it be possible, at the next meeting that we at least get a quote from them as to, we got 10 things we're looking at this, possibility for Kansas City. We got one. At least we have some kind of an
Sure.
idea. We don't need to know the exact thing because I understand their secrecy portion of it, but at least give us an update as to, how many are potential things for the Kansas City and the area.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilmember Jaquez, I attend those monthly meetings as well as Mandy and Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick. And we do get agendas for those. And so when we get a next agenda, I'll forward that to City Council, and that'll kind of give you an eye look into some of the immediate projects that they're working on. One of those is telehealth.
I understand that, ma'am. What I'm saying is I haven't heard anything in a long time as to potential things coming into Kansas City for the money that we're providing. And that would be nice so we could hear that. And so the public can also hear that, potential things that are happening. So they know kind of where their money is going.
Yep. Well, you can get an update for you, sir.
PAX 8 is one of the other ones that is really exciting that FEDC worked with TechStart too, and that's having some remote workers come in the tech industry for iCloud storage. And they're bringing in, I think, is it 8 employees into rural Colorado, specifically Fremont County through Emergent Campus. And so,
Yeah, I think it's 80 statewide.
Oh, okay. So anyway, we're really excited to have been selected for that. And FEDC worked very hard for that. Councilmember Meisner.
On the cash, the 27.7 on the railroad crossing, is that a grant switch thing? Say yes.
What
Page 2 of the cash. It's 3/4 of the way down the page. Further than that, it's about 5 or 6 from the bottom. It's the railroad crossing resurface for 27,000.
Yeah, that was the resurfacing over on, I believe it was 11th Street.
Yeah,
Yep.
but isn't there some grant money? That's not a complete expense there, is that? Don't we get some grant back from the railroad?
I believe there was there was a share agreement on that. And I can get you some more details on that.
Councilmember Brendan Smith, I don't want to put you on short notice, but you were a really integral part of item B on this agenda, and that's the Red Park intergovernmental agreement with the Canyon City High School. I wondered if you'd like to highlight that a little bit.
Yeah, so we did work with multiple city departments, including the PD, the school district, all of the online schools, just to get some sort of a solution for Rudd Park. I didn't realize, but I asked my high school daughter what she thinks of when she hears the words Rudd Park. And I was really surprised at the things that came out of her mouth. And it was very apparent that we had some issues over there with drugs and some things that were going on that I don't think that high school kids should be necessarily have easy access to. So this is a pretty great intergovernmental agreement to turn Rudd Park into a portion of the CCHS campus.
Right, and that's during school hours that they can supervise Red Park and help keep it clean. Like you said, the problems there's always been problems there for as long as we all can remember, but this last semester or two, it's gotten escalated to be quite worse. So thank you for being a part of spearheading that solution.
And Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I also want to say, while we're on that topic, that does not mean that the police department will not be there and be patrolling and supervising as well. There will still be a police presence as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, that they're a part of that government agreement and collaboration for solutions. Councilmember Meisner.
So on that agreement, and they talk about exclusive use, how does that work? Or what are we doing to educate John Doe public? Because it would be my understanding under exclusive use that non-school district personnel would not be utilizing that park from 7 to 7.
Yeah, we're putting out social media posts. I believe we're going to do a write-up in the paper, and then we're also putting signage up in Red Park as well. That signage, we're waiting on it for it to be delivered. So initially, it's going to be more of an education campaign on the ground with the police officers in the school district. And then once that signage is up, once we have that period of time, we will, we'll be enforcing it under the agreement.
I see that legal signed off on this, but I assume you're all right with that language. That surprised me.
Microphone.
Yes, these are fairly common agreements where, I mean, frankly, the two parties are in charge of working it out and enforcing it in order to co-use facilities like this.
And it doesn't impact any of our unique code language with our parks.
Not at all.
Any other comments from council? I'd like to entertain a motion. Councilmember Meisner.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move that we approve the minutes, the consent agenda, and the agenda as written.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez,
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Aye.
Okay, it carries. We're ready to move on with our agenda for tonight. And we'll start with item number 9, our administrator's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Just an update on different departments. The Parks Department's been working very hard in the cemetery over the last couple of weeks. There was a microburst storm down trees and limbs over in the cemetery. I don't know if anybody had driven by, but it was quite in shambles. They've gotten most, I believe at this point now, all of those trees and limbs removed, but it was a very long process to get it cleaned up. So I want to thank our crews for being out there and taking care of that. Our water department's continuing to do their fire hydrant exercise. That'll take about 6 to 8 weeks to complete. The museum has put out an RFP for the improvements, the drainage improvements for the Red House. Our library is working on their new grants for next year to the state library. And the summer reading program ended up with 150 adults and children. They had a party at the splash pad on Friday to close out the year. Normally that would have happened at the pool, but we did it at the splash pad this year. We have a number of positions that have been filled through human resources and a couple that we're finishing up on the recruitment, including the Main Street Program Manager. We have a couple of police officer candidates in process. We're getting very close to being fully staffed there in the police department. With the chief recruitment, that is going well. KRW, the recruiting company, is continuing to do their recruitments. So far, we have 24 applications that have been submitted, and that should be closing here in the next couple of weeks. I know I've got a meeting next Monday with the consultant to go over that list of that list of candidates. We've got a lot of concrete crews work going out with the streets department, and building department continues to be busy with single family homes, and starting to see some additional movement over at the Holiday Inn Express. One thing that's not in this report I want to mention is, we've had a lot of calls in regards to and emails in regards to some of the activity from homeless and youth and over in Centennial Park and the parking lot over there. in addition to some other issues. We have continued to step up our response as we see response taking place in Veterans Park and other places. We're seeing some of those issues moving around the city. So we encourage the public to continue to call and report those so we know where those issues are. Regarding some of the things that are going on along the Riverwalk, we're continuing to work on that as well. And because only a portion of the Riverwalk is within the city limits, we're working with the sheriff's office as well, trying to set up a co-response to some of the issues that are going on there.
Councilmember Meisner.
My first question or statement is in regards to that homeless situation and the complaints that we get. I'm somewhat concerned, but maybe understanding that I thought that some time back that the police department had made it a priority to enforce and to keep that situation as much under control as we could. It's just disappointing to realize that that wasn't happening, apparently, that the police department wasn't going out there and doing the things that they should have been doing, or at least committed to this council that they were going to do. And I realize that was under slightly different management, but just because we change management doesn't mean we change our goals automatically, or at least our commitments to council.
I was just gonna on that same topic say that Ryan and I met with interim chief Tammy Wagner and Officer Zabruski, who's the parks ranger, as well as some management from the train depot, and we came up with quite a few solutions to help address some of that, and also talked about kind of the, like I said, once we've dispersed kind of the homeless from the Veterans Park area and some of the Riverwalk area, now we're seeing that activity somewhere else. And so we're looking at it holistically throughout town of some of those solutions. And it seems that Chief Wagner is taking this seriously, and we definitely said the words consistency and perseverance. And I'll reiterate that again, just like you did. We need to have that consistency and perseverance in dealing with those issues. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. New subject. So I'm confused as to why are they putting that curb and gutter at Central or East Main and Orchard? How did that come about?
Yeah, we've been having a hard time holding that that corner there, the new asphalt. So the curb and gutter is going in to help keep that new asphalt in. So the curb and gutter has been put in. There's dirt there now. That dirt will be dug out, and additional asphalt will be going to all the way to the curb in order to hold that curb. People have been cutting it short, and it's causing damage there.
All right.
I also have a question to do with roads. I should have asked you earlier today, so if you don't have an answer, that's okay. I did get a phone call from a citizen. Last time you had mentioned how CDOT was changing the timing of the lights, but then we've also seen some changes on Highway 50 by Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't aware what was happening with that. Can you enlighten me, please?
Yeah, the CDOT was supposed to be putting out a public statement. Their PIO was supposed to be putting out some information. We requested that information again today. That information was not put out. When they go and redo the lights, one of the things they're going to do is take away some of that signaling that is the left turn on Fremont Drive there in front of Walmart. So you won't be able to turn left there at the light in order to try and cut down on the number of cycles that are going there. So the movement in the future, well, I believe they already have some of the traffic control. It's temporary traffic control that's up there now. So you'll turn right off of Fremont Drive, and then you'll have to go to the roundabout and come back to the light.
Adam, whatever it's worth, Adam mentioned that very briefly, which, because we talked about that, him and I, numerous times, I knew exactly what he meant. But Adam mentioned, I don't know, a week or two ago, that they were going to take that left lane out of there. And it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were expecting a little bit more time and more warning, but they've moved forward, and we've not seen a public statement from it yet.
I think the one thing is that if you're not from Canyon City and you want to go east on Highway 50, I think it's, I don't know, maybe some kind of map or something at that intersection to tell people how you're going to get there, because from that point, it's like, where do I mean, how do I get there? You don't realize
Mhm.
that you very easily go down to the loop-de-loo and come back. But if not that, you're thinking like, how am I going to get where I need to go? So people are going to actually turn anyways because they need to go where they need to go.
Is it too late to get with, see, I understand what they're saying. We want to make everybody turn right and go on the roundabout, okay? I think, this is my own personal feeling, if you get some of those semis that are coming out of Walmart, making them go take a ride around the roundabout to get in there, you're going to create more of a traffic congested problem. Rather, if they just made that light a solid green light right there to allow, or just make it a complete left turn, but a solid green light which would allow, because I'm there the other day, 2 semis. They're going to make that left-hand turn. They're not going to go to that roundabout because it's too difficult for them. But what they're doing is tying up the other traffic behind them in that. So, I'm not an engineer, but I think there's got to be something more simpler than to make them do the roundabout. I don't know if it's too late or not, but it's happening every day.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I know the permanent solution is actually a concrete divider there to prevent that from happening. But we can certainly try and reach out to CDOT and see if there's any other solutions.
Councilmember Meisner, did you have anything else?
Well, Can you give us an update, not necessarily tonight, but soon, on what's going on with our first and Royal Gorge property in terms of when we're going to be able to, I hate to say this, get that out of our hands? I mean, we didn't buy it to keep it.
No,
and
we
we
sure
surely
didn't.
didn't buy it to make it into a parking lot,
Nope.
which is what I'm hearing.
No, the plan is to put it out for RFP for development opportunities. What we're trying to do right now is actually clean up some of the title work and make sure it's a nice cleanup piece of property from a title standpoint for whoever takes it on in the future. So there's some additional parcels that are there that we want to make sure that it's all encompassing under one clean title.
Last one. So I had a conversation with you and the mayor briefly about the housing situation in Canyon City, affordable housing
Yes, sir.
from a contractor standpoint.
Yes, sir.
And there was a suggestion at that time that we could have some kind of a open session with council and some contractors to look at that whole situation in terms of what makes some sense. And it was maybe thought that a vision committee down the road would happen. Have we had any progress with that?
We've actually been having conversations with contractors and real estate folks over the last couple of weeks, staff and those groups. One of the things that we were talking about for the vision committee was actually having a report on the housing study that was done last year, and then bringing in some of those contractors in to have some of those discussions as well. I think certainly we had a meeting today with one of the builders and had some of that discussion, and then we had some last week as well. We could certainly set something like that up. I think it may be a little bit repetitive, not just because of the meetings that we had today, but we're also inviting those builders to have conversations with the consultant that's doing the comprehensive plan. So they're going to be having those discussions again as well. I think one thing that we might be able to do is have the consultant consolidate those the feedback that they get from those groups, and maybe we can have a vision committee meeting that has that consolidated list together, and we can go through that and have a deeper discussion.
And I think the housing study review will be really pertinent as well. Councilmember Jaquez, did you have anything else you wanted to address? Let's go ahead and move on then, if that's okay. We're going to go ahead to item number 10. And this is the consideration and adoption by title only of Resolution 16, Series of 2020. And this is for the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Expansion Urban Renewal Plan, and finding that the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Expansion 15A blighted area. And it just goes on. Do I have to read the whole thing?
Or you can have the council member that makes the motion read the entire title if you'd prefer.
Just go ahead. I already got started, so I'll go ahead and finish. So this is for the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Expansion 15A blighted area, designating such area as appropriate for an urban renewal project pursuant to the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Urban Renewal Plan, and finding that the acquisition, clearance, rehabilitation, conservation, development, redevelopment, or a combination thereof of such area is necessary in the interest of the public health, safety, morals, and welfare of the citizens of the city of Canyon City.
And Mayor Smith, I have joined the meeting.
I'm going to turn this over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. The Resolution 16 before you, we had the public hearing on July 20th, and the resolution itself was continued to today's date. Again, the Urban Renewal Authority was previously created. This is consideration of the plan. And the plan that you have in your folder or in your binders, it looks at a large majority of the commercial industrial areas of Canyon City from the east border to the western border. It also looks at the St. Scholastica. We had a property owner petition to be included that had property up at Field and Central. And then we also took a look down 9th Street and then some areas of industrial zone land over near Dawson Ranch. And the importance of this plan is to try and address some of the issues that we see from the blight study, as well as help close the gap on some of the financing for projects that we see that are having a hard time getting over the financing hurdle for the city. And we continue to see and hear from developers that are looking and doing projects in other communities that there is a barrier there. And you know, even though we're in a rural area, and sometimes I think people might think that the cost of doing business in a rural area is less, we do run into issues where there is a lot of mobilization from some of the larger cities, and that does add to the expenses of doing some of these projects. And you know, we continue to see that from the development standpoint, and we hear that with some of the projects that have started but have not been able to get over the financing hurdles so far here today.
Corey, would you like to address council as well?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's actually two resolutions for your consideration. This first one is exactly as Ryan indicated, it would approve the plan. But item 10B is actually a resolution approving the various agreements with our taxing partners. And after House Bill 1348, you can't do one without the other. So this, while 10A is ultimately the approval of the urban renewal plan, 10B is approval of the various tax sharing agreements, increment sharing agreements with our partners. And I can talk about that separately when 10B comes up, but I just wanted council to know that they do go together because House Bill 1348 requires us to have had all of those intergovernmental agreements. And the distinction is the Urban Renewal Authority cannot begin to collect increment until all of the agreements have been finally approved.
So we still have a couple agreements to approve, right?
Yes, so you have in your packet most of them. There are two left that have not been finalized. One is with one of the Water Conservancy districts, and the other is with the 4 Mile Metropolitan District. 4 Mile Metropolitan District is confusing in that there are 4 metropolitan districts. 2 of them have property in the urban renewal area, but only one of them imposes a mill levy. So technically, we only have to negotiate with the metropolitan district that imposes a mill levy, which is Metropolitan District number 3. But Metropolitan District number 4, which doesn't impose a mill levy, has the property at the commercial corner. So we'll bring to you an agreement with both Metropolitan District 3 and 4. We've been, Ryan and I have been talking to them, and we are confident we're very close. So the plan can be approved tonight, but there will still be 2 more agreements to bring forward.
We have for Arkansas Water Conservancy here. Is that?
We are still waiting for Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy. So that's the one we do not yet have.
Gotcha. And I do want to acknowledge that Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick is on Zoom now, so that he's available for comment and voting as well. Councilmember Meisner.
We had a question. So just for clarification, the revenue, I'm going to call them revenues, or the financial assistance that's available through this program. At one point, I understood that those revenues, that assistance is intended for infrastructure type of improvements. Is it not intended for stick and mortar type of improvements also, or assistance?
There are various things that it can assist with. So infrastructure is certainly one of them. It can assist with life safety, ADA. In the instance of downtown, it can help with historic preservation, things that are considered public benefit for the community. So when you have a historic district and it's considered a core part of the character of a community, those types of expenses could be eligible as well. Corey, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, because there's quite an extensive list.
Yeah, the state statute gives a list of examples, but they're not exclusive. But what I would say is that the eligible improvements are those that have public benefit. That's not always a public improvement. So for example, it could be facade improvements. It could be underground utilities, even if they're not quote unquote public utilities. So if someone wanted to oversize a gas or electric line, for example, to serve a block as opposed to just a business, that's something urban renewal could help with. Traditional public improvements are certainly a core power of urban renewal authorities. In fact, one of my clients tonight is approving tonight a loan agreement to build a bridge, a multi-million-dollar bridge for the entire community that serves the urban renewal area. So it is core public improvements are a big part, but all the other items that Ryan mentioned as well.
So this assistance that we're doing, those are loans?
No.
That's true assistance.
There are a number of different ways in which an urban renewal authority can assist in a project, and it's going to depend on the application because, as Ryan mentioned, you need a gap. Urban renewal is not an entitlement. It is intended to be a mechanism for assisting when the numbers just don't work because of whatever reasons, whether it's mobilization costs, it could be environmental conditions, it could be the cost of historic preservation. But there is an analysis to determine that there is an actual gap that urban renewal will fill. That gap can be filled with front-ending assistance in terms of public improvements. Frankly, the most common type of urban renewal assistance is that the developer fronts the money and the urban renewal authority pays it back over time from increment generated from that property. So there's no risk to the urban renewal authority. If the value doesn't go up and no increment is generated, then no money is paid as reimbursement. And that's frankly the most common type of urban renewal assistance.
Councilmember Dennehy.
So just real quick on when we're talking about that and with different businesses, do they look into basically the strength of the business that's applying, or that I guess that's when are they looking, if there's a business that's extremely strong and they're doing this, that's, I guess that's what I'm saying. Is it more for people who really need it, or if the business is strong, are they still going to help them out?
Both. It's
Okay.
it's when there's a gap that can't be filled. Now, what urban renewal typically is not a tool for is an individual business's tenant finish, because that doesn't have the public or eligibility component, the public benefit component. By contrast, things like sprinklering an entire building, whether historic or not, is the type of public benefit. But if a landlord has space, builds a new building, let's say, and a proposed tenant comes in for pure tenant finish, that would typically not be the type of development that urban renewal would assist with.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hawkes.
I got two questions. The first one is, I wish I would have marked it down, but we're going through all this paperwork and everything. Somewhere along the line, I thought I saw a parcel in there that said that the city of Canyon City should annex the area at the Royal Gorge Park area. I'm not sure of the exact area where I thought that the Royal Gorge Park was already in the city. No?
No, it is not.
So then, based on what I'm hearing here, then that's the suggestion in here. I can't remember the page, that we should annex that park into the city limits.
So when they did the urban renewal plan, they looked at a lot of the different plans that the city has already done, and they may have referenced some of those plans, and I believe that's what you're seeing there. What we're talking about is the urban renewal plan and the map that's in there. That is what is being approved tonight. You cannot add additional land into that without a substantial modification of, Corey's coached me well, a substantial modification of the plan itself. And that takes going back to all the taxing entities and getting reapproval to go through that process.
Okay, so if that were to happen or try to happen down the roadway, it would still have to come back our way. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, the second question I have is, can you go say, I want to go yes for the part A of this, or no for the part A on this, and yes for the part B of this, or no for the part B? Can you do that?
You need the agreements with the taxing entities in order to approve the plan.
So in other words, if you're going to go no for A, you have to go no for B.
It's a package deal, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't there, you could approve A, but isn't there a timeline to approve in B? And if you don't meet that timeline, A becomes non-existent?
The timeline's on item A, because we opened the public hearing on the 20th.
That's correct. And so the issue with B is if any of the entities had requested mediation, if we were not in a position where we thought we were going to reach an agreement and had to go to mediation, we could approve pending the outcome of the mediation. But none of the parties have requested mediation.
Okay.
So we are ultimately at the finish line, subject to dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the last two agreements.
Okay. I would like to read a statement. This is from Council Member Dolly Gonzalez, who couldn't be here tonight, but she still wanted to have something read for public record. And Councilmember Dolly Gonzalez says, I wanted to be here tonight to make this statement, but I have other responsibilities that kept me from joining you all. I wanted to state that I am thrilled to see we have come to an agreement that will be suitable for all. This is one area our community can continue to thrive. I want to be clear that I was never against the URA, but I was, however, against causing strife between entities. Now that we are all on the same page, we can move forward in good faith that we have done the right thing for our community. Thank you to all who have made And then with that, I think that's a good introduction to invite some of the requests to address council, if that's okay. And I will call you up in order that we receive them. And so we will start with Lance Tomar from the fire district and invite you to come and speak. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, won't need that long. I just wanted to basically come in and speak for the Fire District Board as a board member of the Fire District. And just say I wanted to thank the council and the city, everybody in the city, for working with us to come to a acceptable agreement for everybody. I think we can get this project through and everybody can get things done the way we need to and take care of our problems as well as yours. And hopefully this is a benefit for both of us. And I really appreciate you all for being open to the negotiation process. I know it was a long one and we made it. And so just more of a thank you for everybody for listening to our concerns and really listening close to them. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there might be a question for you.
Well, it's not a question, it's just a comment. I mean, I'm going to say I congratulate, but I appreciate the board's efforts, the chief's efforts, and all the firemen. If you look at this situation a month ago, it looked pretty dire in terms of those two entities reaching some kind of a compromise. But I think this tells you, or at least demonstrates what's capable if everybody just keeps their nose to the grindstone and tries to work out and look at each other's differences and you know, we got something done. And thanks to Mindy, she did a really good job of reaching out and continuing to try to make for sure that the parties were staying at the table or coming to the table. I mean, everybody could have very easily walked away and let the courts decide this whole process, but we didn't do that. And I really appreciate the fire department as a whole, their efforts.
Thank you. All right, thanks guys.
I will now invite Fire Chief David DeVecchio.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully this is the last time that we have to have a conversation about the URA. But I know a couple of council members were not at the firefighters meeting that was held several weeks ago. And to echo Lance's comments, you know, we do appreciate the time and effort that City Council has put forward in learning about and recognizing the concerns the district has. But I also want to reiterate to the council members and Madam Mayor that there was truly a very fine line between penning this agreement and coming to an agreement and taking a different course of action, similar to the letter that was presented to City Council and the firefighters. I'll let Shane speak to that point, but we felt in the end that the agreement that we reached appears to be an amenable agreement between the fire district and the city and the URA. One thing I will say is that, you know, one of the biggest concerns for us was the philosophical differences on time frame, what have you, for the URA. We do have a look back clause and all that. Hopefully we will have a representative on the URA board that represents the fire district. Also, you know, for everyone here, I don't see anybody here that will be here for the next 25 years. I mean, in the positions you're in now, and myself included, but you know, the next several years, and for those of you who are in your first term as a council member, you might or might not seek a second term, so you might not, or might not be here even in year 10. But you still have an obligation, in my mind and our mind, to follow through on what was said about the URA process, what's going to carry forward. You might not be an elected official, but I can guarantee you that we might call upon you to get up and support what the intent of this URA was at some point in the future. I know this will be part of the historical lore of the fire district, because now it'll be, as we carry on with tradition, it'll be, hey, make sure to keep an eye on the URA and what's going on with that. And truly, it's something that we are going to have to do because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years, especially the next 25 years. So I think the process that we had was very amenable. I think Attorney Hoffman and Ryan Stevens and Mayor Smith and all the council members for hearing us out and stopping us before we went over the precipice that would have led to a totally different outcome here. So I look forward to working with city council and city staff going forward in the future. And we have our fingers crossed, like we said in the past, the fire district is not opposed to development, but we need to be sure that the development is not going to handicap us trying to go forward. So that's
you,
about it
Chief.
on that. I would like to make one additional comment outside of the URA, if I could. Oh, what does that mean? I can. See, you can tell I don't come up here very often. So I would like to thank City Council for recognizing September as Suicide Prevention Month. As you probably might not be aware, we've had several suicides with active and retired members of the fire district. And that is one of the leading causes of death in the fire service nowadays, unfortunately, as well as law enforcement and in the EMS world. So it is a rising trend that we hope to put a stop to. We've dedicated a lot of resources in the fire district to accomplish that goal, and we hope to continue to do that. And we hope to not ever see another suicide within our local fire service. So I thank you for recognizing that.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, Chief. Thank you for being a team player with the City Council as well. We really appreciate it. And we'll now call for Shane Roberts, who's also representing the firefighters.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's so nice to be able to actually stand in front of you instead of being on the end of a Zoom meeting. That's absolutely terrific for those of us that a lot of our job is face-to-face and we meet with people this way. So the reason I'm standing here to address you is for one reason, because I stood in front of Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick and made a promise to you guys. And so that promise was that if our board, the attorneys, Ryan, everybody in this room can come to an amenable agreement that we feel like is not going to negatively impact the fire district, that on behalf of all the firefighters, that we're going to take a deep breath and we're going to transition from being a staunch opponent to this to kind of transitioning to being on the front row of watching to see how this works. And so the reason I'm here is to make sure that you understand that that promise is going to be upheld. We're honorable people and we intend to do just that. So the only thing that I would like to add in this whole process is one of the things that we've had a lot of conversations about, I've had conversations with different council members about, is in addition to money being provided, different things to try to bring people into this community that are going to be beneficial, is there's one thing that still needs some work, and that is the city has an image problem. And sometimes that's the elephant in the room that people don't have an easy time acknowledging. And so one of the things we need to work through is how do we all get to where we are today without having gone through all we've been through. And so I don't have an easy answer to that, but one of the things I can tell you that we've done where I work is that whenever we've had a problem, whenever we have a proposition for people, is we have actually made a list of all the people that we thought would disapprove of whatever we're trying to do or have the biggest objection to that. And those are the people we spent time with first, to sit down and understand what your concerns are, what scares you about this. And so we've been very successful in standing up straight, presenting a problem to people that we have a resolution for how we fix this, and say, what do you think? Because if you're completely transparent and honest with people and you take the problem to them instead of making them chase you down, we've been very successful with that. So in earnest, I just want you to know that on behalf of the firefighters, we're gonna do everything we can to make this successful, because it's kind of like riding in an airplane and being upset with the captain saying, man, I hope you fail, because we're all in this together. So I appreciate the time. As my pager goes off.
Thank you, Shane Roberts. And just in reaction, just again, thank you so much. Canyon City, we are working really hard to be more business friendly. And as far as, you know, the integrity of the city council and for me as mayor, this is kind of just a little bit of an analogy maybe, but there was a king who didn't have an heir to take over his kingdom. And so he gave seeds to all of the children in his community and asked them to grow their plants for a year and bring their plants back to him. And he would judge who the new king would be based on those plants that were grown. And so the year came and all the children came and all of them had these beautiful plants, tomato plants, spinach, whatever, trees. And one boy had nothing that grew at all. And he brought an empty pot to the king. And the king told in a proclamation that he had boiled all of those seeds so that none of them could grow. And the only one boy was the one that had the integrity and the honesty to come before the king with an empty pot because he planted his boiled seed. And that is my promise to you, that we are being earnest and honest and of utmost integrity. And right now the pot might be empty, but now we have a tool because we all have worked together as a city council with all the taxing entities. It's not just us to be business friendly, it's taking every single taxing entity to work together to be business friendly and proactive for Canyon City. And so thank you for that. And because we have that collaboration and cooperation to move forward, I think we will flourish and we will grow, and that we will benefit. Hopefully, with the way the economy is, we need this now more than ever, that we can do that and be responsible to all districts, including the firefighters. We'll turn some time over to Councilmember Mandy Reed.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. I thought about writing something that I wanted to share tonight, but I'll botch it and not be able to read it, so I'm just gonna speak from the heart. One of the things that I think is most wrong with our nation right now is the lack of accountability in government. What we saw from the Canyon City Area Fire Protection District was a huge amount of willingness to come to government and hold us accountable. And that's exactly what we need more of. We spent a lot of hours talking through the details of this, asking questions, pulling our hair out, yelling, screaming, hitting tables, laughing. All of these emotions are really real because there's so much passion behind what these men do for a profession. I'm so hopeful for the future of Canyon City because the people that are sitting up here aren't just the same people who've sat here, who've done the same thing forever. We're having real, genuine conversations with the people because we have to, again, right, consent to be governed. That's what we're doing. And so this is basically a community service project up here. We all know that this is something that we do to be able to serve our community. And the way you guys have taken on your fiscal responsibilities and shared them and been diligent, making sure that you understand and that you're negotiating the best deal possible to ultimately keep us safe is admirable. And so I really appreciate that. All of the taxing entities that have helped come up with negotiations on this have worked really, really hard. But I just want to say again, you know, that challenge, Chief, that you gave to us to essentially be watchdogs. I definitely will not be up here in 25 years, but I for sure will be in Canyon City, God willing, and I plan to do just that. So thank you sincerely for the time, effort, and gray hairs that all of this has caused. We really appreciate it. And I have some too, but you'll never see them thanks to my salon. So thanks, guys.
Well, you never know. The first female mayor, Ruth Carter, she was 89 when she was elected. So, you know, 25 years, it could happen. Yeah. Councilmember Jaquez.
This is one of those hard things in there, and that's why I asked the one question that I asked with regards to A and B. First of all, I want to state that I already had a feeling with the urban renewal even before it came about to council and all this other part, okay? So I'm not just bringing this up now, it's a feeling that I had the first time I heard about it wanting to exist. The one thing that I want to say is this. I appreciate everything that Mandy and the other people did with regards to the fire district fire department. Tremendous job, okay? You learn a lot at a garage sale when you get to talk to a fireman, okay? Tremendous job. I appreciate the fact that what this will accomplish. I know it's going to accomplish a lot for Canyon City in the area surrounding us. It's going to help out the rec district. It's going to help out the school district, hopefully. Hopefully it's going to work in a positive way for the fire district. My biggest concern with regards to why the vote that I'm going to give is the fact that we have seen people come to Canyon City and say, this is our big plan. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then this council listened to it. And then we did things for them. And then they come back to council. Well, there's still some stumbling blocks for us to succeed and do what we want to do. And then this council goes back and rethinks everything and does everything in their power to try to make some of these things successful. The biggest problem being is it's okay to come to this council, the city, whatever you want to say, and say, this is what I want to do. But do you have the dollars to do it when you first come? And some of these folks that came to us did not have the dollars to do what they said they wanted to do. But this council worked diligently, hard, and overtime to try to help make those things successful. Okay, now we pass this thing, I guess it's going to happen. Yeah, grant you, they're going to have to put in some of their money, but it ain't going to be all of their money. And I'll tell you what, if the gentleman that wanted to do St. Scholastica, if he would have done what he said he wanted to do, make some apartments at the dormitories, man, he would have filled them overnight. But they didn't have the resources to do what they said they wanted to do. We've had a lot of smaller businesses come in here and do what they wanted to do. They did it on their dollar. On their dollar, okay? That's what I appreciate. And I still hope that if anybody still wants to come to Kansas City, you know, take that into consideration, okay? We're gonna do what we can to help you. But don't come to us in the onset and say, this is what I can accomplish and everything else, and then later on turn around and say, well, guess what? We don't have the dollars yet. So they're gonna rely on the urban renewal. That's the part I don't like, okay? And that's why I asked about being able to vote both ways. I'm gonna vote no only because of my statements that I've made with what has happened in the past with regard to that. I'm in favor of the urban renewal, but I'm not in favor as to the time frame that has come about and everything's been done. But I appreciate everything that Ryan's done, our attorney's done, Mandy's done, the mayor and all the other folks. But I had to make that statement now, okay? Because I'm not against it completely, but I have a sour point when somebody comes to this council and they've come before. So some of these members weren't on the council when some of this came. I was, okay? They come with all this stuff and then it never materializes. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dennehy.
First off, I'd like to thank, the fire district, for listening. I'd really like to thank Mandy for really taking the lead on this. I know the other people, but I really watched what she's done. I had to sit back a little bit. We all know still I'm gaining. We're gaining. And believe me, if this goes bad, believe me, I have somebody who lives behind me who is very strong with the fire district, and I can't have him on me because then I don't know what'll happen to my whole hayfield or everything. But I really look forward to this. I really look forward to this whole process. I'm so glad that you guys came on board. I think it's a win-win. When originally I ran for council, I said, I just want Canyon City to become the best. This is where I'm raising my son. And that hasn't changed. I want to see nothing but the best for this town. And I think this is a big step for us. I see some great potential. And again, I just want to say thank you to all who put in extra effort on it, and especially Mandy, and just thank you for the time. And Corey, Ryan, you guys, thank you.
Any other final comments from City Council or Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick? I see you on the screen. If you need to speak, let us know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say dittos to what everybody said. And I would like to point out that a URA is an economic development tool. It's like any other tool. If it's misused, you can end up with bad outcomes. But if you have good people trying to do good things with it, there's nothing but an upside here. Thank you.
Pro Tem Hamrick, I'd like to make a call for a motion. Member Reed.
Madam Mayor and Council, I make a motion that we accept resolution number 16, series of 2020. Here goes the long part. A resolution for approval of the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Expansion Urban Renewal Plan and finding that the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Expansion is a blighted area, designating such area as appropriate for an urban renewal project pursuant to the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Urban Renewal Plan, and finding that the acquisition, clearance, rehabilitation, conservation, development, redevelopment, or a combination thereof of such area is necessary in the interest of the public health, safety, morals, and welfare of the citizens of the Canyon City, of the city of Canyon City.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I just want to do a final thank you to all of the taxing entities. Corey and Ryan have worked especially hard on this. We're really grateful to have one of the state's premier experts on URAs at our disposal. And I think that'll be part of that success story as we move forward as well. Not just the adoption, but our future and making this blossom and grow. And to prove that when you come back to us, that hopefully there'll be big smiles on everybody's faces. We have several key projects of blighted areas in Canyon City that are ready to take advantage of this tool now. And I'm looking forward to being able to make that happen because we have this tool available. And with that, we'll go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Hey,
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
I vote aye.
All right, is this where we're gonna do a little happy dance before we move on? This has been a huge undertaking, huge accomplishment, and I'm feeling really happy about it.
We've got one more.
I'll feel happier after Part B gets done. And that is the consideration and adoption by title only of Resolution 17, Series of 2020, entitled, "A Resolution Approving Intergovernmental Agreements for Tax Increment Revenue Sharing Between the City of Canyon City, Colorado, the Canyon City Area for Reinvestment Expansion, and Overlapping Jurisdictions."
Mayor and Council, you in your packets, you have agreements from all the various taxing entities. Two of the agreements have been agreed to in principle. That's the Fire District and the Upper Arkansas Conservancy District. They have not voted on theirs. Those will be coming for a vote at their next board meetings. Everybody else that is in the packets, they have already voted and signed their agreements. The two agreements that Corey Hoffman mentioned earlier, the Southeast Colorado Water Conservancy District and the 4 Mile Metro District, we are working on those, finalizing those agreements, but at this point, we are happy to present what we have so far for approval.
Corey?
I think two things I'd add. One is, as I indicated earlier, until the other agreements are finalized, increment can't come to the authority. The second thing is that the way these agreements are structured, in large part, the agreement with the city is critical. The agreement between the Urban Renewal Authority and the city, because the city pledges the sales tax increment of 1% of the 3% of its sales tax irrevocably. And that 1% irrevocable pledge was critical to the county and the fire district especially, seeing that the city had, quote, skin in the game. And I guess the other thing I wanted to add is if this resolution is approved, what will happen this week yet is a letter will go out to all of the taxing entities talking about their place on the Urban Renewal Authority Board, because there's a county representative, a school district representative, and a representative from all of the special districts combined get one seat on the Urban Renewal Authority. We want to get those seats filled, and then the Urban Renewal Authority will actually have a meeting. We're thinking hopefully the second regular meeting in September, so the third Monday in September, where these agreements you will see once again with your Urban Renewal Authority hats on at the first meeting convened of the newly constituted Urban Renewal Authority.
Fantastic. Now, in our binders, we have those agreements that have already been voted on. We have these that were put on our dais today. Do those need to be added on, or is it?
They are included within the resolution.
And so will the fire districts, or the 4 Miles and the other water conservancy, will we vote on those, or will they also be included?
We will bring those two back to you.
Okay. Councilmember Meisner.
So the sales tax, assuming this passes tonight, when do they start collecting that 1%?
So it will be, they only start collecting it if increment is generated.
Okay, so it's still incremental.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it is only the increment.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
1% of the
Yes.
incremental.
Yes.
Any other discussion from council? Then I would like to call for a vote, please, or a motion. Councilmember Reed.
Madam Mayor and Council, I make a motion that we approve resolution number 17, series of 2020 as written.
A second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Then I will call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez,
Because of the explanation, I still have to go nay.
Councilmember Meisner,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
I vote aye.
All right, the second ordinance has passed. We can all take a deep breath and look forward to moving forward. And we have another item on our agenda that also has 2 parts and has also taken a very long time to get through. And that is the Black Hills franchise agreement. And so I am going to go ahead and open up for item 10C, and that's the second reading and adoption by title only, ordinance 13, series 2020, entitled An Ordinance Granting Black Hills, Colorado Electric LLC DBA Black Hills Energy its successors and assigns a non-exclusive electric franchise. Ryan Stevens.
Mayor and Council, this is the second reading of the franchise agreement. Again, the franchise agreement is to set the rules and regulations for how the electric franchise works within our right-of-ways, and has some really nice provisions around undergrounding. And again, I want to remind council and the public that this franchise does not do anything. We do not have the power or authority to influence the rates of Black Hills, and that is not what this franchise does. But again, this is second reading, and I believe you have some folks that would like to make public comment on this particular topic.
Yes, we do. And we will call those in the order that we receive those requests. And the first one will be John Vigil from Black Hills. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes.
Good evening, council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you, John.
Okay, sorry about that. I just wanted to say thank you to the council for your diligent work, for making this franchise a document that addresses the community's needs. Specifically, you had some interest in undergrounding, and you found a way to make this work. We're obviously happy to accommodate that change in the franchise. And as was mentioned, this is really an operating agreement between the city and Black Hills Energy. And it really just gives the city some additional ability to direct us on how we conduct ourselves in the public right away. And that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions for John? All right, then we'll move on to Emily Tracy, representative of Canyon City Energy Leaders.
Of previous recommendations. We recommend that language be added to the proposed franchise agreement. Sorry, that language be added to the proposed franchise agreement stating that the utility, in this case Black Hills Energy, must continue to collect and remit the franchise fee to the city, even if a franchise is not in place. In other words, if it is expired. That would, to some degree, level the field for future negotiations between the city and the utility. Number two, we recommend that the proposed renewal be for 5 years, not 10. A 10-year franchise, though certainly better than 20 or 25, does two things. Prevents a possible joint effort with Pueblo to explore other options in 5 years when Pueblo can next consider a breakaway from their franchise. Also ties the hands for the future city councils in Canyon City, who may wish to explore other options sooner than 10 years. I know we all agree that successful economic development activities are critical for the Canyon City area. According to a recent 5-year average, Fremont County's median household income is more than 30% below the statewide average median income. We know that small businesses struggle, and sometimes one of the reasons small businesses do not survive is because of the high cost of electricity. The proposed Urban Renewal Authority is one approach to economic development, but as designed, it might help large interests more than our small business community. The city, along with FEDC, should never stop examining all the factors that contribute to our economic struggles, such as the absence of certain amenities, an indoor pool, for example, and the overall poverty rate. This should be analyzed further. Is it primarily retired senior citizens with very limited income, or is it young adults with limited employment opportunities? And of course, as I've said before, the cost of electricity that for me is 77% higher per kilowatt hour than the cost of the very same product by Xcel Energy. Finally, we understand that currently the city does not and cannot set electric rates. But through the franchise agreement process, you have the power to work with other providers that would not only provide cheaper power, but would also work more quickly toward renewably produced power for this community. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions from council? Then I would like to call Carol Dunn to the stand.
Good evening, everyone. I am glad to be here tonight, Mayor and City Council. I'm Carol Dunn. I live at 380 Barrett Avenue in Canyon City, and I have a question, actually, about what I perceive as a deviation from the process for introducing and passing an ordinance. There may be a reason, and I would appreciate clarification from you. At the June 5th, this is an example of how my understanding that a procedure is supposed to for putting forth and placing an ordinance in the record of City Council. On June 15th at the regular council meeting, there was, quote, a discussion, and this has nothing to do with anything, but these were the two items for discussion. Boys and Girls Club of Fremont County 2020 Community Agency Funding. And B was introduction and first reading by title only of Ordinance 10, Series 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City appropriating additional sums of money for the city's 2019 budget. And then following on July 6th, there was discussion of A, second reading and adoption of Ordinance 10, Series 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City appropriating additional sums of money for the city's 2019 budget, a replication of the first reading. And my understanding is that is the procedure for putting forth and placing an ordinance in the record of the City Council. However, on August 3rd, there was, quote, discussion, Black Hills franchise ballot language, A, and B, Black Hills franchise agreement, period, with no indication that this was a first reading. Later in the introduction of the ordinance in the August 3rd minutes, it's titled, An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, referring a ballot question to the registered electors of the City of Canyon City regarding the Black Hills electric franchise. Again, with no mention of this being a first reading. Process is one of the most important tenets when it comes to the relationship between government and the citizens. Process promotes trust that all residents and petitioners who come before you will be treated the same. Whether the matter is a zone change, a liquor license, a new law about trash cans, or a utility franchise, all procedures must be followed. Please tell me the difference between the discussion of budget appropriations with a first and second reading on June 15th and July 6th respectively, and the discussion of Black Hills franchise ballot language and franchise agreement on August 3rd, with no mention of them being the required first reading of the ordinances. I truly want to make sure that all is in place for this important vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Councilmember Meisner.
I can't say for sure, but I can tell you that I'm not sure where you got the verbiage of the ballot or the ballot language not saying first reading, but there's a number of times, and that may have happened here, when the information that we have available in our booklets is not the same exact information that winds up being available on council night. So there's a possibility that would explain why there's not that first reading. I don't know that that's the case, but that has personally frustrated me many times when my book is inaccurate, but sometimes there is additional information that gets added, particularly to ordinances in terms of how they're presented on the night of the meeting versus the information that we've been given. And I'm not sure which information goes public, but I would assume it was the information that's in the booklet.
I'm looking at the agenda online.
Yeah, but you don't even know what agenda you're looking at.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, on the agenda, I did not have the wording yet when we had to publish our agenda. It didn't get done until after the fact, and that's what it did get. I don't think the agenda got changed, it's just that the ordinances got put into your booklet, but that's why it was not on the original agenda.
But we did approve it on first reading.
Yes,
Like
yes,
on
and
you.
that was the wording, yes, ma'am.
May I just have a request that perhaps it can be changed to read first reading? I don't want somebody to come back and say, oh, this really wasn't first reading. It needs to be more precise. I can do that.
Do you have any
What's the
responses from our
minutes say?
attorney? The minutes just say that it passed.
Yeah, but it should,
Yeah.
the minutes should designate first reading.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll make sure that the the agendas are consistent.
And I will fix that and put the minutes back through next time. I apologize.
I guess the one thing that I can say is sometimes when we've gotten something that wasn't in our booklets and we get something later, we've always asked our attorneys, if there's any deviation that would change what we're doing. And then we go based on their explanation to whether, no, it won't, or yes, it might. And then sometimes, I know we've done it, when it could change something, we've continued it to another time frame so we can get it taken care of. But I know we've always asked our attorneys, based on before we do something, are we okay doing what we're doing?
So on our meeting notes for it does say introduced for first reading by title only
Correct.
for the franchise agreement.
Where's that at?
And then
Page 3?
Page 4.
Page 4.
And then on page 3 for the franchise ballot language, I don't see where it says by first reading only. So, but it was approved on a first reading. So that is,
It's in there as well. Under the motion, it says
Under
on
the
first
motion.
reading. by
oh yeah,
title
it
only.
does. It is under the motion, yes. So we do have it under first reading in the minutes. So it is public.
And I think,
Record. Yeah.
well, I think the other thing that gets critical here is that's why we have not only the handwritten, I'm going to call it handwritten, the hard copy minutes, which is just really an overview, which I don't necessarily like, but that's what it is. But more importantly is that we've got the recordings of the minutes. So that's where you could go back to the August 3rd meeting and look at that recording on, I guess, YouTube, and actually pick up the exact segment there and see specifically what in fact was presented to council and what in fact was voted upon. And that's the value and the legality, correct me if I'm wrong, of those minutes, is that's a representation of what actually happened in the meeting, regardless of what the book says and the agenda said. You look at those minutes of that meeting, that's what actually happened.
Any other discussion from council?
And I appreciate you, Carol, bringing that information to us, because I'm with you. That gets frustrating when the information doesn't line up. And I realize it can't always, but we need to continue to do a better job of making for sure that it's right.
Consistency and perseverance.
That's a theory.
I think it's one that we're getting better at all the time. We did have someone to speak to us, and I think that was Jerry Fry for this ballot language.
Is she here?
She's on there.
Where?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I know Mandy said that she appreciated being held accountable, and I feel like I see a little bit of a barn burning, and I'm going to shout, hey, the barn's burning. Canyon City has the highest electric bills among the 40 largest cities in Colorado. Black Hills is both wholesaler and retailer to our community. This is expensive and paid for by us customers. Black Hills had the choice to buy less expensive power from a power wholesaler or build a new power plant and become their own wholesaler. They chose to build the new power plant, and we customers have become unwilling funders of their choice. Black Hills scares Canyon City when they say you can't afford to buy our power plants and distribution system. Actually, Canyon City simply needs to purchase the distribution system and buy wholesale power on the open market, where it costs about half the price that Black Hills Energy charges itself and then passes on to us. High electrical bills impact each of us, choke new business and business expansion. Informed decisions protect and serve the community and aid with urban renewal. Since we don't know all that City Council has done, City Council, please consider doing these 5 things. 1, please contact Loveland, Gunnison, and Fort Morgan, 3 of the cities that with municipal-owned electric supply that are closest in size to Canyon City, and ask them about their municipal rates, and then compare them to what Black Hills charges. Number 2, please check how much money Canyon City and her citizens Send to South Dakota every month. Please analyze the impact of Canyon City's economy if local power is under control locally and local dollars stay here. If paying Black Hills Power Plant is Black Hills' obligation, not yours, not mine, how much would that decrease our monthly bills? Number 3, please meet with the designers of Fort Collins' forward-thinking electric utility rate designs and project that impact onto Canyon City. Number 4, please consider partnerships. Though new to Canyon City, municipalization is not new in the world. Cities have often formed partnerships with other cities facing these challenging solutions to make the transition feasible. The city of Fountain just broke away. Ask them for their details. And number 5, please host a public meeting and tell the public what all you have investigated and what all has been done. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Jerry. Would anybody like to ask Jerry any questions? Councilmember Meisner.
It's not really a question, but it's frustrating for me personally when there's a wide divide in the legal interpretation in terms of our options. And it's my understanding from advice from our legal staff that kicking Black Hills out of Canyon City is not a viable option. They haven't done anything, as I understand it, according to the rules, to justify getting kicked out of the city. So therefore, bringing in a different utility, municipalizing it, are not viable options at this particular point in time.
Well, and if we were to municipalize, we'd also have to purchase from Black Hills if they were willing to do it. And so it's quite a bit more complicated. And we have
Mayor, may I comment?
No, I'm sorry. We are still having a discussion with city council members, and your time has been up unless someone from council would like to ask. Councilmember Jaquez.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 13 of 2020 on second reading.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Then I will call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
I vote aye.
The motion carries. Councilmember Meisner.
Just the other thing we need to keep in mind is we've taken one step of a legal process in council approving the agreement. It still has to go before the voters, and the voters still have to approve it. So let's move from here.
Well, that takes us to item number D, and that's the second reading and adoption by title only of Ordinance 14, Series 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, referring a ballot question to the registered electors of the City of Canyon City regarding the Black Hills Electric franchise.
And again, this is a second reading. We, at the last meeting, the council selected one of the alternatives for the language, and we do not have any additional items to report at this time.
And we do have a citizen's request to speak to council, and that would be Andrea Stein. Andrea, you'll also have your 3 minutes. Andrea?
She's muted. There.
Okay, I've got the mute off now. Okay. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor and council members. I wanted to speak to this part of the process because it's about putting it on the ballot. And I wanted to ask once again if there is a plan of what to do in case the citizens of Canyon City vote no. Do you have any plan, if that does happen, to maybe proceed with some investigation as to alternatives. Thank you.
Council or Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick, would you like to address this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that where we are in the process, we have a franchise agreement before the voters. The vote is on the agreement. The vote will not be on whether Black Hills will be our energy provider. We do know several things that this franchise does that did not was not within the previous franchise, and based on the strength of our agreement that holds Black Hills their feet to the fire in many different areas, I think that we have a pretty good agreement. If the voters were to reject this, we would have to go back to the drawing board, see if we can determine what was the reason for rejection, and see if there is something in the proposed franchise that was either agreeable or disagreeable to the citizens, and then go from there. But my feeling is we have a strong franchise. It's miles ahead of the previous franchise that we had, and one of the things that we'll do is likely pass a resolution in the future outlining those benefits from the franchise. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Councilmember Meisner.
Well, some of John's conversation was not real legible or audible. But I can say this, there is no plan B, because you have to go through step A to see if you need a plan B. And if the voters decide that they do not like the agreement or want to pass the agreement, it's as John said, we're going to have to try to figure out what they didn't like and try to correct it. I would just hope that people are not, I would hope that people, I'll probably use two negatives here, don't vote on the agreement because they want lower rates. If you do that, you're really not utilizing your vote appropriately, because this agreement or any new agreement is not going to control rates, which is the primary concern for myself and most of the residents in Canyon.
Any other comments from council? Ryan Stevens.
Yeah, I just want to point out from a Plan B standpoint, if the franchise does not pass, the Black Hills is still going to be here. They're still going to be operating in our rights of way. And we as the city staff will figure out how to work with Black Hills and those rules of engagement and that operating side of it from our perspective. But, as Councilmember Meisner said, the voting no on this does not kick Black Hills out of the community.
And in regard, yeah, even voting no, we still have to go through those lengthy processes to look for other viable options. And right now, through that research that we've done, we don't have any viable options or anyone knocking on our doors.
And if there was somebody knocking on the door, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's a complicated process. It's not nearly as simple as it looks.
If there's no more discussion from City Council, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'll try this. Madam Mayor, Council, I move that we approve Ordinance 14, Series of 2/2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I'll call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
I vote aye.
The motion carries. I'd like to thank everybody involved in this. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick, Canyon City Energy Futures, our attorneys, former councilperson Caitlin Turner, who's now running for district attorney. A lot of hard work's been put. And now, like Councilmember Meisner said, it's up to the voters to decide. They're the ones that have the voice. And we will move to our last item on the agenda, and that's item E. And that's introduction and first reading by title only of Ordinance 15, Series of 2020, entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City Setting the Compensation of the City Administrator. And the administrator will give a report, it says.
I don't know if you want me to give a report or if the committee wants to state something.
Have Councilmember Meisner started or read.
We, months ago, council took up a set of dice, kind of like in that little game, and rolled them against the wall, and Ryan Stevens' name came out of the thing. Didn't quite work like that, but we were intrigued with what we believed Mr. Stevens could bring to the table in terms of his vision, and then also in terms of what we had hoped he would have in terms of being a disciplined administrator. And we built a set of, if you want to call it a set, but we built a matrix in terms of establishing some expectations from council in terms of what we wanted from Mr. Stevens over the first 6 months of his agreement. We then met and reviewed that as, I guess, as an employee of council in executive session. We met and reviewed how Mr. Stevens performed in each of those 5 areas. And each of those 5 areas was related to different percentages of income adjustment. So we tried to make it as non-personal as possible and as mathematical as possible. Once we were done in terms of evaluating each of those 5 areas and then equating that back to a compensation adjustment, that's where you're at. We then brought in Mr. Stevens, did the typical things in terms of giving him an opportunity to agree or disagree with council's rating. And we also, for whatever it's worth, set forth a new set of 5 metrics in terms of what we expect over the next 9 months, 6 months, 9 months.
9 months.
And whatever it's worth, if the expectations over the next 9 months are not even comparable to what we expected in the first 6 months, I think Mr. Stevens has done an excellent job so far. And we've at least agreed, I assume, to not get rid of him. So what the process here is to essentially reward him for what he has accomplished. And I'm going to say the one thing that really challenged, I mean, COVID challenged everybody's lives, but there's 2 people in this room that it turned their lives upside down, and that was Mr. Stevens' life and the mayor's life. And that those people met daily, and they guided the city through an era or a time or process that we've never done before. And they've never had the opportunity to experience that. And at least they can now put that under their belt. And both of those people, in my opinion, and I think in council's opinion, performed admirably in terms of looking at the information, remaining calm, and making the best decision that they believed was best for the city at that particular second of time, because when the clock ticked, the parameters changed and the decision would potentially change. But they brought us through a very challenging time and are continuing to bring us through a very challenging time. And I personally appreciate that. And I think council appreciates that.
Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. Councilmember Reed.
Piggybacking on what Jim said, our decision to have you, Ryan, as our administrator was absolutely a fantastic one. I'm really excited to be able to continue to see what you do during this next 9 months. And this is just an opportunity to be able to reward you for a job well done. You caught all of our attention originally when you were handling everything with economic development, and you did a fantastic job, and you brought Canyon City into a lot of really exciting things. With COVID, you have carried us through some really challenging times, and I really appreciate all of the hard work and effort and sleepless nights that you have had, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hawkes?
I want everybody out there to understand one thing too. I agree with both the statements that previously made, but when Ryan took over the job that he was administrator, he actually was doing two functions at that time because he still had his old job to do, and now he had a new job. So he was like juggling two jobs at one time until things could start getting settled down. And so that was an additional challenge that he met, in my opinion, with the utmost urgency and the best results that he could do with regards to that. Being new to an administrator's job from the job he had before was a change of pace, but he went into it with this understanding that my old job still isn't gone, and how do I incorporate my new job with the old one and make things work for the city and the betterment of the citizens of Kansas City. And I think he's done a nice job with both of them.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Brandon Smith?
I can't say anything that these people up here haven't said. I just wanted to say thank you and well done.
Thanks.
I guess my final comments would be just also accolades. It's a really good feeling to be able to come through that process and show that you've had that strong leadership. And we said that when we hired you that we knew there's going to be a lot of really difficult decisions that needed to be made, big strides to take on and monumental hurdles to overcome, and that we would have your back to make sure that you had the support that you needed to do that. You continue to have my support. You've been a pleasure to work with. As I have told you personally, I can see you being with Canyon City for a very long time. And I'm extremely excited for our future and the things that we have lined up to really help us move forward as a community for quality of life and economic development, to get out of that poverty that we have and some of those other challenges. And it's been a pleasure, and we're looking forward to the next 9 months to see how that performance goes.
Thank you, Mayor Smith.
If there's no other comments, I would like to take a motion to approve his compensation. Councilmember Meisner.
Mayor and council, but just also keep in mind that there's 5 of us here tonight, which means we probably couldn't have a tie, which means she doesn't vote. Madam Mayor and Council, I move that we approve Ordinance 15, Series of 2020.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Then I'll call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
I vote aye.
Well, unanimous recognition for Administrator Ryan Stupes. Definitely a compliment. Also want to give a final compliment to Corey. Thank you again for all that you've done for Canyon City during this time as well.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And this meeting is adjourned.